This is robust technical engineering. So this is the summary of the prospect. Talked about this, the 0.45, which is the best exploration you can get. The P50 oil in place is 53 million barrels and the P mean is 66 million barrels. And that would equate to approximately 10 million barrels of reserves. And for a company our size, that is a game changer. We changed the business from rats and mice to a real operating company.
And that's just the first opportunity.
And this is only looking at the lower cruise. This is not taking the volumes, potential volumes in the middle and upper cruise into account.
And you do two wells. The first one in September. When would the other one be due?
Well, so that's a very good question. So the question is, we've got two prospects, and how are we going to plan the drilling sequence? The logic, because I'll show you a picture of the rig later. The rig is a very robust rig. It's a Rolls Royce, but it's not been operating for a year. So
this is steel drum one that you.
That's the Talon rig, yes. So the rig has been sitting in the yard for a year, and any piece of mechanical equipment before you get it back up and running the way it should be, it needs a shakedown. So one of the options we're considering is to use the smaller prospect, the Clove prospect, to do the shakedown, and to then go to the Saffron well as the main target, as the main exploration opportunity. We may become impatient and create comfort that the Talon rig is up to scratch, and we immediately go for the big deep one in September, and then leave the Clove well for a later infill drilling campaign. So that's an opinion we're forming. I'm leaning towards drilling the big opportunity first. My engineering team is saying, well, we want to be sure that we get to depth on the Saffron well, and let's first do a rundown, a shakedown on the Clove. But that's jury's still out.
Is it worth mentioning who EPI are and what they do?
Yeah.
So the first well, am I correct in thinking it's going to be 500,000, and then the second well will be 2 to 4 million? Is that correct?
No. The deep well we estimate around 800,000.
Really, that's come down a lot then.
Yeah, because we know where we're drilling now too. And then the Clove well, somewhere between 400 and maybe 500,000. So, and that's the benefit of being able to drill from land. Offshore, you would be drilling similar prospects, but then you're talking in the millions.
And what depth is that second well going down to, did you say, sorry?
This one, you mean? They'll go to 2,200 feet. So this is the Clove bonus infill well. Right, so who is EPI? EPI is an independent consultant, so it's not our internal in-house dream who are believing their own squeaky lines. So we've done the interpretation, and collectively with EPI we've come to a mutual conclusion of what the volumes are in this block, and what the risks are in this block. And I've talked about all the great opportunities. 10 million barrels is transformational for our company, but if I were you, I'd be asking, but what's the risk around this? So what can go wrong? And I believe there's two main risks. One is you saw the crumpled up nature of the geology. So there's a lot of faults, there's a lot of fractures. So how continuous is this lower cruise? Is it indeed one reservoir as it looks on seismic, or is it broken up in all small parts, and do we need a lot of wells to drill it and to get it to producing? That's one risk. And the other risk is, because it's crumpled up zone, there's a lot of instability in the formations above the reservoirs, which we need to drill through. So will the overburden be sufficiently stable for us to quickly and efficiently drill to the target? So those are the two key risks I see, and which we're going to be working on in the detailed design, and we've got some ideas on how to manage those risks.
And what's different from this from any other exploration campaign I've ever been involved in is one of the risks is normally is there oil there? Well, that is not a risk. There is oil there. We know it's there. It's a question of that.
Could I just ask a question? So the last time that a drill got stuck, you know, the company nearly went under.
Yeah.
So what contingency is there in place for that should it happen again?
So very, very good. I like that question. So to repeat it for the camera is the last big well LGO drilled, they got stuck and they lost a lot of money and nearly went bankrupt. So there's three elements to that. So one is they got stuck, they spent a lot of money on the well and they could not get it to production. So the loss of not having a producing well is often killing for a company because you do spend the money but you don't get the financial return. So that's one element. Second element was that they used a very expensive piece of equipment that cost them 2 million. So they had an outstanding liability immediately of 2 million. So not only losing the income, they also had this liability. And then third is that oil prices cratered. So the whole industry collapsed. And then, well, that was a perfect storm for the company, and then you know where it happened, and now we're here, fortunately. Yeah. So how we're managing that? First of all, we're not using expensive bits of kit. We're using dumb steel to drill to TD. We've purposely designed this well such that's a vertical well, straight down to keep it as simple as possible. We've moved the service location to a point where we can just drill down, quick, easy, with a Rolls-Royce rig. We've got a Rolls-Royce Black & Decker with a top drive, and that's not usually available in Trinidad. So it is a nice piece of equipment which we'll be using to drill that well. And we're treating this as an exploration well. So we don't expect to get revenues from this well, which is financially a very strong, how do you call it, safety barrier. So even if this well is not a success, the company won't go under.
And you'll be there when it's drilling.
Oh yeah, yes. And this is probably 3 weeks, and the critical phase is 2 weeks. So during the 2 weeks, I'll be in Trinidad on the rig. I want to put the slide out because this is all the technical information. So I'm not expecting you to read this, but for the techies. They can really go into this data and see that we've been very, very modest. I do want to show you this slide because any proper oil company not only drills an exploration well in the hope that they're going to be finding oil, but also understands what, if you find oil there, how do the economics look like. So on just this prospect, we believe that this will add close to 80 million NPV to the company's cash box. Yeah. This is just the lower cruise, so we haven't taken into account any of the upside in the upper and middle cruise, and we've been very heavy on capex. So if the well comes in the way we hope it comes in, then we've got an extensive program which will be funded by the crude produced from this field, and we'll be putting in a main pipeline system and export system. But if you look at the cumulative cash, this turns to positive cash flow very quickly, and that's why when you're asked about how are you going to do future raises, further raises, that's going to be very much dependent on the discovery you make, and then how this first piece of how we manage this first piece of the investment cycle. You can argue that we can be two decisions. We can either be patient, allow the well to produce a bit, and then turn it in cash and use that cash to then drill the next few wells, or we can have a conversation to say, well, now's the time to put some extra money in and get this peak production earlier so that everyone can go home and be a winner.